Hi everybody, welcome back to my video blog. We have a bit of a change of setting for today, nothing particularly special, I just wanted to get out of my bedroom. I also have a dog in my lap who will probably not make an appearance on camera, which is too bad because she's very cute, but she'll be here. Anyways, kind of a just for fun blog today, because I had an idea and I thought I'd test it out on you guys. So importantly, if you just follow me on YouTube, you won't know that I have my own website now called lilyholman.com. That's Lily with two L's, holman.com. And on that website, I now have a written blog. So you get to, if you're sick of hearing my voice, you get to read my words if you want to. And to kind of start that blog off, I put together a random list of art and storytelling that's important to me. And I've been kind of trying to explore some of those statements that I made kind of quickly, kind of off camera and off blog, to figure out which would be the most interesting to talk to you guys about. And one of them was that Parks and Rec Season 3 is, in my mind, a perfect season of television. It's my favorite season of television. And believe me, I watch a lot of television. And so I kind of wanted to back up that statement and talk about my favorite episodes from the season. And I thought that when doing that, I'd discover that I have a favorite episode for sentimental reasons, and then an episode that would be the strongest when put up to analysis. And then when I took the time to rewatch these, which is kind of hilarious because I basically already had them memorized, I realized that my personal favorite also was the one that stood up to analysis the best. And so I'm going to talk about that in this blog in a minute. But first, I think you should know kind of my favorite episodes, plural, from the season if you wanted to check it out. If you haven't watched Parks and Rec at all, I really strongly suggest you do the binge, you do the whole thing. Word to the wise, its first season is not strongest, and that's why it had a little trouble kind of jumping off in the beginning. So you can skip the first season and start in season 2, and that might you might have a better chance of sticking with it if you do that. But it's worth it if you enjoy it to go back and watch the first season. And then third season, like I said, is perfect season of television, and after that, it just doesn't lose steam. It stays amazing through till the end. So when you do this, if you haven't done it already, and if you have done it already, I encourage you to revisit the third season. Pay attention to these following episodes. The first one, chronologically, is Flu Season, which I think is almost the funniest episode of Parks and Rec I've ever seen. Just in terms of the jokes that they run off quickly are hilarious. They have what is documented as the writer's favorite joke, and it was actually improvised by Chris Pratt on set. And so earmuffs if you don't want spoilers, but it's when Andy turns to Leslie and says, "I typed your symptoms into the computer, and it said I had network connectivity problems." So anyways, it's full of gags like that, and you also get the moment when Leslie shows Ben just how amazing she is. And one of the wonderful things about Leslie as a character is that she has these wonderfully strong personal relationships with her friends, but she is also all about her job and her work and how remarkably good she is at it. And this is an episode that highlights that. So check out Flu Season. It's hilarious. And then you have Harvest Festival, and Harvest Festival is a really fun episode overall, but what's really important about Harvest Festival is it's the episode that introduces Lil Sebastian. And Lil Sebastian is the joke, the gag, the element that just defines Parks and Recreation. It's a mini horse, he's a mini horse, and everyone in the town just adores him because he is a mini horse. And the way different characters react to him defines them and says a lot about them, and it talks about the town as a whole, and it's just brilliant. And so watch Harvest Festival for that. Then you get to Andy's and April's fancy party, which is my personal favorite and the one that stood up to analysis, so we'll talk about that at length in a minute. And then you get the end, the finale, which is entitled Little Sebastian. And again, Irma spoilers. It's Little Sebastian's funeral episode. And that was the one I actually thought would stand up to analysis the best because it's kind of iconic. It caps off this amazing season. It's all about Little Sebastian, who, like I said, kind of defines the show in his own weird way. But when you revisit it, what's interesting about it is that it has really strong emphasis on Ben and Leslie and Tom, and it doesn't highlight. It has moments that highlight the rest of the cast, but not as much. And to me, that's actually kind of a weakness, even though I enjoy it immensely. And also, you get like characters like Jean-Ralphio, who, again, this is much better if you know the show, but Jean-Ralphio is a wonderful side character who's kind of a buffoon in the town. And he's really great when he kind of appears in bits and pieces, and he's a wonderful character and he's funny. But you get a lot of him in this episode, and he's kind of like, he's one of those characters where you almost want him a little bit more in controlled doses. It's kind of like Captain Jack Sparrow in Pirates of the Caribbean, and how it was much better when he was a side character as opposed to a lead. It's a bit like that. And so, but the thing is, I'm being nitpicky about like my second favorite episode of television, about why it's second favorite rather than the first. Like, it's still ridiculously funny and wonderful. And you also get Chris Pratt singing 500 Candles in the Wind, which is, again, another defining moment of the show. So, now that I've given you the lay of the land, I thought we should dive into Andy and April's fancy party, because in many ways it is just this perfectly structured episode in the middle of this perfectly constructed season. And because it's actually not Harvest Festival or Little Sebastian, it kind of is swept under the rug. There are moments by it that have lived on in meme and GIF form, but I'm not sure how many people actually remember that it all happens in one contained episode. I thought it would be fun to just kind of go through it and prove that it kind of, moment by moment, there's not a wasted minute in this thing. I love doing stuff like this. It's one of my quirks. I really like breaking things down to the minute details. My favorite example of this is that at one point at school, I was studying Rear Window, and I did a shot-by-shot breakdown of Rear Window. And when you do that, you discover that there is not a single shot in that entire film that does not belong there. There's no, like, turn of the head by Jimmy Stewart where you're kind of like, he could have left that out. No, everything in there is perfect. I'm not... Well, yes, I guess I am comparing Andy and April's fancy party to Rear Window, but it's a bit like that in a weird way, and there's very little that's superfluous here, and the amount that they stuffed into 22 minutes is remarkable. And also, so I guess it helps, so you're not totally sick of me, to kind of talk about the big things before we begin. Things to note that are amazing about this episode is that it's truly an ensemble piece. Everyone gets their moment. It just bounces between characters very quickly so that no one dominates the episode. You have a central through line that talks about the themes of the show, which is very much how wonderful a town Pawnee is. And it's constantly whether you should stay or go in terms of Pawnee, and that becomes a central through line, and so that's important to remember. And also just the tone of it. It gets very sentimental and sweet, but it never lets it stay there. It always kind of gets a gag in there really quickly, so that it's just constantly funny and constantly sweet and just goes at a light speed pace, and so that by the end it doesn't feel like any time has gone by. So let's go through it in detail. Watch it or do a side-by-side. You could even treat me like a commentary track. That's my dream. You can make my dreams come true today. Anyway, so right off, we have this cold opening. And this isn't for every cold opening, but a really awesome cold opening will actually have nothing to do with the rest of the plot, and will just be a moment to kind of get you in the mood for the show, give maybe a spotlight to characters you haven't seen before, or don't get to see a lot of. You get a moment in time that's not a central plot. It's just like their quote-unquote everyday life, so it makes it feel a little more real, like you're just spying on them. And it also, like, from a practical point of view, if you're not TiVoing the thing, you get to run back from the kitchen or wherever you were when the show starts and you don't really miss anything. This cold opening is great because it actually does all that. It's Ron taking out his tooth in the conference room with a pair of pliers, or at least that's what it looks like. And so you get this quick gag about Donna and her Mercedes and and then Ben with his Saturn, and so you get a moment between the two of them. They each get a joke, and you get a defining moment, and then you get Ron, and you get a lot of quick reactions of everyone in the room. And so, like I said, everyone gets a joke, everyone gets to react. It's funny, and it defines the show and introduces you to the characters you're dealing with, which is important because a sitcom is supposed to feel like you can come in at any point and not feel like you're missing things. So you get this moment, this cold opening that introduces you to everyone and sets up the kind of tone of the episode, which is everyone gets a joke. That's what's going to keep coming up. Everyone gets a joke. So you get the credits, and then you get Andy and April coming in and inviting you to the party. This episode used to just be called Fancy Party, and I almost like that better, but it's Andy and April's Fancy Party. And this is the central concept of the episode. And then there are like little things here. You get Andy on roller skates, which to me is the Luxo wiggle of the episode, in the sense that it's totally superfluous. He does not need to be on roller skates. It's just funny. It gets him an excuse to interact with April. It kind of encompasses his childlike nature. It's just Andy on roller skates. You get a Jerry joke. Jerry jokes just are very easy for the writers to throw in there if they need a gag. They define the show as a whole. Jerry never stops getting made fun of, but later on it becomes key because he has a hot wife. Anyway, so you get a Jerry joke, and you get quick little introductions to Andy as a character. Again, if you haven't seen the show, Andy doesn't own a home, he's immature, and you get the really funny recurring gag about the invitations and the stuff they're asked to bring, i.e. common household items for a party. So they're really not prepared to be holding a party, and because they're not prepared to be holding a party, they will not be prepared for the stuff that is introduced later on as well. And then you get a Leslie moment, and that she's bringing everyone together. She's the leader. And you get a Tom gag about the boys' sale at Dillard's. So you've introduced this plot really quickly. You've defined these characters really quickly. And you also get Leslie taking you out to Ben, and you get a moment with Ben. You get the moment Ben and Leslie flirting, so you know that they're a potential couple. You get another Avatar in 3D gag. And you get the central conflict, the should Ben stay in Pawnee? And that central conflict gives him an excuse to flirt with Leslie and consider that relationship. And it gets us a lens to look at the show in the sense of appreciating these characters and this town, which is what the show is all about. So as Ben decides to stay in Pawnee, we also get to decide whether we're going to keep watching. And Ben is a really important character in the life of the show. When Ben, played by Adam Scott, and Chris, played by Rob Lowe, when they come into the show, the energy of the show just shifts. It becomes a much stronger show, and so you really want them to stick around. So it gives us something to be invested in that's not inherently comedic, it's more sentimental. And you also get the introduction of the pro and con list, which will come up again later. Now, a key detail to point out at this point, we're not even 5 minutes in on this episode. We've introduced so much and we're not even 5 minutes in, which is important for a 20-minute thing. You don't waste time. You can't have the superfluous shot of Jimmy Stewart looking off into space, which, again, does not exist. So at this point we get a B plot. Anne's at a singles bar. It's awkward. Anne is great in the sense that she can be a reality check, but she can also be awkward in that sense. And so this gives her a plot to explore that. But again, it's a B plot. It's not as important, but it's a B plot that does work. So 4 minutes in, the party started. Again, not wasting time here. We get another Jerry gag with his party shirt, and then we get an Oren joke. Oren is an iconic Pawnee presence, and it brings the town back in, and it's an inside joke. And I found in my extensive sitcom watching that inside jokes are key to sitcoms because they make you feel in the know. They reward constant watching of it. Oren is an inside joke, and his darkness is hilarious. And so he'll be more important later on. You also get Chris and his vegetable lope, and you get Ron's great, you've deprived us all of cake, which is a line that I want to use again someday if I'm at a party without cake. But that moment defines both Chris and Ron. And their relationship. Chris and Ron have a contentious relationship purely based off of food and lifestyle. They just mashed. It's great. And you don't know who wins out. And so we get thrown really quickly back to the B plot. So we get Donna gets some moments to shine. She gets to be hilarious and tough and Anne's kind of sage guide to the dating world. But that happens, and then we get it immediately back to the party, and when Tom brings it back to the stay or go conflict. That quickly gives Ben a moment to get a nerd joke in. Ben is a really iconic, not really, a great character because he is, he's the straight man in this, not in terms of sexuality, in terms of just he can be the voice of reason on the show. And you get that, it's the Jim character from The Office. You get, Ben getting a nerd joke, and the reason that's great is that Ben is not perfect, and he has kind of his own quirks, and that's a moment for Ben to get a quirk. And so, quickly back to Leslie in the kitchen with Andy. This is when we get introduced to the fact that this is not a party, but a wedding. So the key conflict of the thing, other than stay or go, is introduced. You get a bit of a heartwarming moment because you get Andy's facial expressions, which can fly by if you're not paying attention, but Chris Pratt is a god. And if you watch his face, most of the time he's just kind of happy and bewildered, but you get moments, I love you, eyes to April. And what's also key is if you watch this in order, you really get a sense of how little time they have spent dating. This is episode 9 of the show, of the season. They were barely flirting at the beginning of the season. It's happening really quickly. And if you're used to sitcom relationships, something like Jim and Pam, they went on and on and on before they finally did anything. So in that sense, they are a sitcom stereotype defying couple in that they not will they or won't they. It's very quickly will they, and then they go all the way. It sounds dirty. I'm sorry. So, and then we also get a moment for this to be emphasized because Leslie gets to throw out all the tropes to why they could be getting married, which for a sitcom audience would very understandably go through all our heads. Are they pregnant? Is she dying? And you do get the gag of Andy thinking that they're all true, but they're not, and that's key to this relationship. This relationship does not make sense. Leslie and her panic about it makes sense. This should not work, and it does. And in that sense, it's unique. And that's something that the creator of the show, Michael Schur, is really great at. If you watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine, there are so many storylines and jokes that are just not predictable. They're not what you're used to seeing, while still maintaining the positive, happy tone of a sitcom. And that's why they work. Because the drawback to a sitcom is that you're way too used to them, so you know what's coming. This is an episode where you don't know what's coming because if it followed rational sense, it would not work. So, also, one of the drawbacks of the first season is that there's too much of a focus on Leslie. And don't get me wrong, I'm a diehard Amy Poehler fan. I adore her. And Leslie herself grows into a really wonderful character. But if you get too much Leslie, kind of like if you get too much Jean-Ralphio, it gets kind of annoying. And so Leslie herself doesn't really have much of a plot in this episode. She's mostly just affected by other people's plots. And therefore, her jokes all are talking head jokes about former loves, which really sweetly sets up Ben, but it gives her jokes to be really... her jokes are like everyone else's joke in this episode. Quick, dirty, well, not dirty, but quick one-offs that don't take very long and let you come back to other people and plots without getting too hung up on them. Speaking of, quick throwback to Anne, remind us of what's going on with her. We get Donna joking about Nell and a really awkward dating interaction. And then we get thrown right back in, and Tom gets his own plot. And Tom gets his plot about wanting to be a best man. So there are many different plots going on here, but they're all just in the service of to give you jokes, to give you characters, to give characters more time, to make this an ensemble piece. This is not a single person show. This is an ensemble piece. So by having an A, B, C, I don't think there's really a D plot in this. Having a bunch of different plots going on allows the show to do that. And so we get Leslie and April in the bathroom. We get April gets to have her dark moment in the mirror. We get thrown back to Donna. This part is kind of a little bit of filler, but again, nothing's superfluous. It's just a bit of filler. And good filler and strong filler that supports everything. And then we also have moments here of Ron getting to be the sage guide. Ron is usually that. There are moments when he gets to be ridiculous as well, but not as much this episode. You get him being the voice of wisdom. You get an Oren gag, and then you get the Brita filter line. The Brita filter line I have seen in memes all over the internet. It's hilarious. But then you get all up to the first commercial break of this entire thing. And after the commercial break, they go right into the wedding. They don't waste time. And so they go right into the wedding. And what's great about the wedding is it means that Leslie's whole I need to stop the wedding storyline doesn't actually get drawn out. You don't have that kind of frustration of a plot that goes on for just too long. They let it happen. And the wedding is this wonderful mixture of sentimental and funny. And so the music is very important here because it keeps a sentimental tone the whole time. Specific to April, the song is April Rain, especially because she's such a weird, dark character. To have her kind of behave in a very sweet light is different and beautiful. You get with her old boyfriends and Oren, you get Pawnee jokes there, and you also get rewards if you watch the first season. And then you get Andy's reaction, which bring it back to being sweet. So the Pawnee, to her old boyfriends and Oren are kind of more funny elements of this. Andy is more sweet. Then you get the high five so that you remember that they're an atypical couple. They're unusual, they're immature, and they are Andy and April and wonderful. Encompassed by the vows, by the way. And so you have the vows, you have Andy calling the woman a him, and you get him wanting to beat everybody up, and you get quick little throws to Tom's storyline because Chris gives the rings, and then you have all the sentiment broken by a quick joke at the end. With the doves. And the thing is, if you don't watch the show as much, the incompetent animal control officers are an old joke, so that again brings it back to Pawnee. At this point, you don't have much of the show left. You have about 6 minutes. You have had the wedding, which was the key element of the show. and now you kind of need to start wrapping it all up. So you get Leslie and Ron, which ends Leslie's panic about it. You get Ron gets a moment to be funny with his effigy line. To move on from old relationships, which in this moment is Andy. And that's great because that puts a really, again, frustrating old plot to bed. You means you no longer have to worry about even Andy and Anne's relationship ever coming up again. It just kind of gets swept under the rug, and Donna is the agent of change here. So that gets put to bed. You come back. Tom gets resolution with that awkward speech and then dancing with the bridesmaid. Not a biggie. You get a really quick sentimental moment because April and Ron dance, so you acknowledge their relationship. I'm a sucker for acknowledging close platonic relationships in TV that sometimes don't get acknowledged, which will probably happen later when I talk about the suitcase. That's Mad Men and a different topic. But you get the really hilarious Chris and Oren gag. So that Oren's been this dark force in this entire episode, and he's defied by Chris, who's kind of crazier than he is in a really good way. You get another dumb animal control gag, which really beautifully sets up Ben to look at Leslie and acknowledge his love for her, even though it's all subtext. And you get the end of the stay and go talk with Ben and Leslie, and he's staying, and so you get that resolved. And then you also get another sentimental moment broken by a laugh with Oren. So then you get the end, you get the honeymoon, you find out that they're still together, and it's the end of Annie and April's fancy party. Right, so quick conclusion, the last one was interrupted by a phone call, but, so why did I go into extensive detail about that episode? I think it's important to acknowledge when an episode might not come across as incredibly important or special, but is, and in this sense, it's in the details. So that's why I went into such extensive conversation about it, because every moment is important in this episode, and every moment says something about the show as a whole. The show is defined by its characters and the performances. Their cast is remarkable. It's defined by its balance between sentimental and funny, and at no point does it get hung up in either one of those emotions. You see a lot of sitcom tropes get defied, and that's another wonderful thing about Parks and Rec. And this is just proof to why I am so passionate and obsessed with the show, is because of episodes like this. And so I strongly encourage you to watch it if you haven't already. I thank you for putting up with my rambling and my excessive enthusiasm, and I hope you come back again next time. Cool. Have a great week, month, hopefully not a month, maybe just a few days without me, but it was great to talk to you all again.